Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video notes for Chapter 2, Section 2 in your Algebra 2 textbook entitled Linear Relations and Functions. Start with some vocab here. A linear function is any function that can be written in the form f of x equals mx plus b, where m and b are real numbers. You should recognize those things from Algebra 1, where we had the y equals mx plus b form, where we said y is our independent or our dependent variable, where we said that m is our slope or rate of change, and we said b is our y-intercept or initial value. Okay, they're real numbers. Now, the other form of a linear equation from Algebra 1, which you probably worked with a lot less, is called standard form of a linear equation. Ax plus by equals c. In that format, a, b, and c must be integers, a must be positive, and a, b, and c do not all three have common factors. If they're all divisible by 2, it should be divided by 2. We used this mostly when we did cover-up method, also known as intercept method, to graph. So hopefully those things at least look familiar to you. We'll use them as we go here. So example 1, we're going to jump right in here, and what we're doing in these first few examples is we're doing things like matching equations to graphs, interpreting in words what different terms and numbers and variables in different expressions mean, things of that nature. So, starting with some applications. So, a candle burns over a period of time. The graph shows a relationship between the height of the candle y in centimeters and the time that the candle's been burning x in hours. Which of the following equations represents this relationship? Now, these are all in standard form, which means we need to focus in on the intercepts. We have the intercepts of 0, 24, meaning when x is 0, y is 24, and 8, 0, when x is 8, y is 0. And what we do is we ask ourselves, okay, well, an intercept of 0, 24, if I cover up the x term, such as in letter A, if I erase the x, I'm left with 3y equals 24, which means y equals 8. Okay, which means that the point 0, 8 would be the y-intercept. That means this is not the correct answer. Same thing here, we erase the 3x, we get y equals 24, which means that for this function, f of 0 equals 24. That could be okay. Cover this one up. 3y equals 24 means y equals 8. So again, f of 0 would be 8. That is not this function. And finally, 2y equals 24 would imply y is 12, or f of 0 is 12. That is not the right function. So the only one that works is letter B. The other three don't make any sense. We could take the same approach with the x-intercept by covering up the y, but it wouldn't be as effective. It would only eliminate answers A and, I believe, C. Okay, so example 2, or letter B there. A landscaper will use 2 types of grass seed to plant a field. The graph shows a relationship between the number of pounds of bluegrass seed Y and ryegrass seed x that the landscaper could use to plant the field. Which of the following equations represents this situation? So again, we have an x-intercept down here of 12, 0. So that's saying when y equals 0, x equals 12. So by using this fact, we can eliminate some of our answers. If y equals 0, the y term would drop out of the equation. Notice that this would yield x equals 12, x equals 3.6, x equals negative 12, and x equals negative 3.6. We just said over there that when y is 0, x has to be 12. That means the correct answer is A. Okay, in example 2, we're talking about interpreting various linear equations, interpreting situations. So in the first one here, Blake is buying pizzas and drinks for his friends while they study for a test. The equation shown below models a number of pizzas, P, and drinks, C, that he can buy for $30. If 3 pizzas are bought, what is the maximum number of drinks that Blake can buy? So right here where it says, if 3 pizzas are bought, that is telling us that our P value for pizza is 3. So the first thing we should do is plug in 3 for pizza and simplify the equation. If you notice, if we solve that equation for C, we will answer our question. What is the maximum number of pizzas Blake can buy? It is asking what is C when P equals 3. So we plugged in 3 for P, and now we need to solve the equation for C. We subtract 15 from each side to get 1.5C by itself, which gives us 1.5C equals 15, and then we divide by 1.5. 15 divided by 1.5 is 10. So the maximum number of drinks that could be purchased would be 10 drinks. Letter B in this section says the physics class uses a set of weights with a total mass of 10,000 grams. The set consists of 200-gram weights, which are being indicated with N, and 500-gram weights, as represented in the equation shown below. Which of the following best interprets the meaning of the variable N in this context? Well, if you notice, the N is attached to 200, and this is basically a weight equation. It's saying 200 times that number of weights, 500 times the number of weights is the total weight of the set. So when we're looking at this and we see 200N, 200 is the weight, N is the number of 200-gram weights in the set. Same question on part C, only now it's asking about what is the best interpretation of this term, 500 times 12? Well, that is indicating that there are 12 500-pound weights. So when we multiply the 12 and the 500-gram weights, when we multiply the 12 and the 500-gram weights together, that would give us the total weight in grams of the 500-gram weights in the set. Okay? It's not the number of 500-gram weights because we already know that. There are 12 500-gram weights. How do we know that? Because that's the number attached to 500. Okay. Letter D, a school club is paid $315 for recycling C pounds of aluminum cans and P tons of paper. The equation 0.5C plus 60P equals 315 represents this situation. What is the interpretation of 60P in this context? Again, we have 60 times P. P is known, that's the tons of paper. So 60 times P, 60 must be, because this whole equation is in terms of dollars, 60 must be a cost, a total amount. So that should eliminate A and D. We shouldn't even be thinking weight. We should be thinking amount. So in this case, P is paper, and we're figuring out the total amount that we're being paid for the tons of paper in the problem. The 60 itself is how much they're paid per pound. We know that because, or per ton, because that's multiplied by 60. The equation P equals 2.7x plus 7 models the percentage P of U.S. households with a computer from 1984 to 2010, where X is the number of years since 1984. Which part of the equation represents the percentage of U.S. households with a computer in 1984? Meaning we're looking at an initial value, which means what we're really trying to find is the Y-intercept of that equation. The Y-intercept is the 8. 8% of households had a computer in 1984. The equation h equals 150 plus 10t gives a total number of housing units h in a community t months after a new zoning law was passed. How many housing units are added to the community each month, that's the key words right there, after the new zoning law was passed? This indicates that this is a rate, meaning a slope is what we're looking for. The slope is the number attached to the t, indicating that t homes are added each month. Current market value in dollars y of a certain car for various years x after it has been purchased, new, is represented by the equation y equals 16,500 minus 1,500x. What is the meaning of the negative 1,500 in the equation? Well, that is the slope or the rate of change. The reason I'm writing that down is because we should know that that means that there is a rate of change of negative $1,500 per month. It's listed in dollars per month. So when we put this into words, we should say the car loses, right, because it's a negative rate, loses $1,500 of value. Oh, that's in years, sorry. Each year after it is purchased. Each year. That rate is in dollars per year. Sorry about that. Okay, example 3 takes us to find the intercepts. So what we're going to do is find either the x or the y-intercept or both. So when they ask us what is the x-intercept, that is saying let y equal 0 or cover up the y term. So when we have that equation 2x plus 4y equals 6 and we plug in 0 for y, what happens is that y term disappears. And we solve what's left to get x equals 3 by dividing each side by 2. Which means that the point 3, 0 would be our y-intercept. I'm sorry, x-intercept. The next question says, what is the y-intercept? That means we're going to let x equal 0, meaning we're going to cover up the x. So we have the equation 3x minus 6y equals 9, and we're taking the x term out. We're going to cover up the x. Divide by negative 6 to finish solving for y. So y is equal to negative 9 over 6, which is negative 3 halves, meaning the point 0, negative 3 halves, when x equals 0, y equals negative 3 halves would be our intercept. In the xy plane, what is the x-intercept of the line with the equation y equals 5x minus 1? X-intercept means let y equal 0. So 0 equals 5x minus 1 and solve for x. So we would start by adding 1 to each side, which would give us 1 equals 5x. Then we would divide by 5 and we would get x is 1/5. Technically that could be written as a point, but we don't have to write it as a point. That would indicate that 1/5, 0 is the location of the x-intercept. In the xy plane, the graph of y equals 1/2 x plus b, where b is constant, intersects the x-axis at negative 6, 0. What is the value of b? Well, this is a tricky way of them saying, oh, look, you're given an x and a y. So we should take our equation, y equals 1/2 x plus b, plug in negative 6 for x, plug in 0 for y, and then solve the equation. Well, when we do that, we add 3 to each side, and we get that b is 3. Letter E, the function f is a linear function. The y-intercept of the graph y equals f of x in the xy plane is 0, 5. What is the y-intercept of the graph y equals f of x plus 3? Okay, so f of x is a linear function, meaning it is in the form mx plus b. B is the y-intercept. So B is 5. If we want to know f of x plus 3, we're simply going to add 3 to that equation. Combine like terms. Our function has an intercept of 0, 8. Same thing for letter F, so pause the video and try it on your own, see what you get, then resume the video and see how you did. F of x is the equation mx minus 12. We don't care what the slope is, it's unimportant. It is a linear function, so it is in the form mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept, negative 12. The y-intercept of the line f of x plus 2 would be mx minus 12 for f of x, and then plus 2. Well, that's mx minus 10, which means 0, negative 10 would be the correct y-intercept. Okay, so that brings us to graphing. We should remember how to graph from Algebra 1, so this should be relatively quick. Remember that the first couple here are in the form y equals mx plus b. So we have a slope and a y-intercept. The y-intercept tells us we're going to start at the point 0, negative 4. 1, 2, 3 right there. The slope of 2 can be written as a fraction, 2 over 1. Remember that slope is rise over run, which means the top number tells us how to go up or down. In this case, it's positive, so we're going to go up 2 units. And the bottom tells us how to move right or left. Since it's positive 1, we're moving to the right 1 unit. So up 2, right 1 would give us the next point on the line. So we continually move up 2 and right 1 to create our linear function. So there's our function through those points. Okay, hopefully that rings a bell because you should already be pretty fluent in this. So on the next one here, we have our y-intercept is 5, which means we're starting at 0, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. 0, 5 is our starting point. Our slope is negative 3/2. Always put the negative with the top number, because what that tells us is that we're going to go down 3, right 2. So from our starting point, down 3 and right 2, down 3 and right 2, down 3 and right 2, until we go off the graph, then we draw our line through those points. That's how we graph out a slope-intercept form. Now the other form we can graph out of is the standard form, in which case we use what is called the cover-up method, or intercept method. To find the y-intercept, we let x equal 0, which means we cover the x term. When we do that, we're left with 2y equals 10. Divide by 2, and we get y equals 5, which indicates the y-intercept is the point 0, 5. Which means we graph the point 0, 5. That point is on the line. Then we do the same thing to find the x-intercept, except instead of letting x equal 0, we let y equal 0, meaning we cover the y term. When we cover up the y term, we're left with 5x equals 10. Divide by 5, we get x equals 2, which gives us the point 2, 0 as being on that line. So we graph the point 2, 0, and in theory, those are all the points that we need to draw a line, because we only need 2 points to define a line. We should have learned that in geometry class previously. Okay. So again, on the next one here, the y-intercept, we're going to let x equal 0. which means negative 3y equals 6. So y is negative 2, and the point 0, negative 2 is the y-intercept. Graph it. Okay, then we do the x-intercept, which is where we let y equal 0. Cover up the y term, we have x equals 6, which means the point 6, 0 is on our line. Use your straight edge, draw a straight line through those 2 points. Okay, finally we have a word problem. The Electoral College was established by the United States Congress in 1788 and is a process used to elect the President of the United States. The number of Electoral College votes varies from state to state. The equation, V equals 7/5 P plus 2, gives the estimated number of Electoral College votes, V, for a state P is the state's estimated population in millions for the year 2010. Which of the following graphs best represents the relationship between P and V? That's a lot of words for basically saying which graph is y equals 7/5 x plus 2. So first of all, the plus 2 is the y-intercept, which means that the graph is not at 0, 2. The y-intercept is the point 0, 2. If the graph doesn't pass through 0, 2, it is not the correct answer. That eliminates A and C. Then we have a slope of 7/5, which means from that point 0, 2, we're supposed to go up 7 and right 5. Well, which one of these shows us going up 7 and right 5? Letter D is the correct answer. Now, how do we know it's D and not B, you might ask? Well, on letter B, we go up 5 and right 7. That is backwards. Remember, it's rise over run. So B is not the correct answer. D is. Thank you very much for your time and attention.